Hi, it's Noah with American Trucks. On the table in front of me, we've got the barred front bumper for the 2019 and newer Ram 1500, excluding the EcoDiesel, Rebel, and TRX. Now, this bumper is going to be a great choice for the Ram owner who wants some more lighting, some more front end protection, and the look of a tight-fitting and low-profile upgraded front bumper. Just at first looks with this bumper, it's a lower profile option and I really like that. It doesn't look like a big pouty lip, and probably the best part of this one is that it looks right at home on a clean and stock truck. The thing I want to point out next is that we've got two LED locations here on the wings to use those included LED light bricks, as well as provisions for an LED bar mounting spot here that's up to 30 inches in the center. Now, in the grand scheme of things, usually aftermarket bumpers are installed to give the vehicle some better protection on the trail or even just on the road for daily fender bender protection. Now, this guy is pretty beefy and it's going to serve all of those purposes, and it even has an integrated splash guard plate here that mounts up underneath so you're protected from obstacles under there as well. The barred front bumper is constructed entirely from pretty heavy-duty hardcore steel, and this isn't just a huge sheet metal steel bumper with a poor fit and finish. It's actually pretty darn nice, and there's a lot of detail integrated into the construction, even down to the little tabs that these front grills mount to. Now, the main openings in the front bumper are covered by a steel grill, and everything can be customized to work exactly how you want it. You can just pull this front grill off, throw your light bar of your choice in there, and you're ready to rock and roll. Now, those two LED bricks that mount on the wings are IP67 rated as well, so they're seriously heat and water resistant. Now, everything across the bumper, from the brackets to the screws, is coated in a natural black finish, and that's going to ward off any rust or corrosion. Now, the last thing I want to mention is that it even comes with a 5-year warranty, so you can be confident in your purchase. This barred bumper falls right around $600, which isn't going to put a huge dent in your wallet in terms of larger truck upgrades. I do think a sub $1,000 price point for a bumper like this is pretty impressive, considering that just getting paint issues fixed on a stock bumper can sometimes cost more than a full upgraded bumper these days. Moving on to the install aspect of this bumper, it has a difficulty of 2 out of 3 wrenches and about an hour for the install time. There's nothing to worry about as far as that install goes though, because we're going to head over to the shop and walk you through that install process step by step.
Tools required for this install include an impact gun, an electric and hand ratchet, the included Allen wrenches, a flathead screwdriver, a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters, some zip ties, 10, 13, 16, and 18 millimeter wrenches, 13, 16, 17, and 18 millimeter ratcheting wrenches, some microfiber towels, 8, 10, 16, and 18 millimeter sockets, a 4 millimeter Allen socket, and a swivel adapter. What's up, guys? Today we're installing a front bumper on our Ram. First, we're gonna watch a quick video for how to remove your stock bumper, and then I'll meet you right back here for the install.
So right off the bat here, you can see our truck is on the lift. I just wanted to say, you don't need a lift to do this. This is definitely extremely easy. We just do that to make it a little bit easier on our camera guy, make sure he can see everything and get you the information that you need to know to do this to your brand new Ram. First step though, we're gonna grab the ratchet, 8 millimeter socket. There's 5 bolts we're going to remove in the wheel well right here. We're gonna get those out of the way, and that's going to allow us to remove a plastic wheel well liner that's connected to our front bumper. So now we have those 3 out. This piece is loose on our bumper, but it's still kind of trapped in there. So there's 2 more we're gonna remove, and that should pull right out. And you can see those are slotted, so you only need to loosen them up to be able to pull that plastic piece out of the way. Now we're gonna come over to the other side and do the same thing. So once you got the driver's side plastic removed, we can move on to the next step. And that's gonna be this master wiring harness. We gotta disconnect that, and that'll unplug all the electronics on our bumper. First thing we're gonna do is move this switch from that position right there to the open position, and that will allow us to pop open this clamp right here, like so. And then if we just keep going with that, it should push the plug apart. Now, next up, we could actually move underneath the bumper here and disconnect this thing from the frame. There's 3 18mm nuts that hold this thing on. The one that I have the wrench on right now is a little bit tough to get to with the impact gun, so ratcheting wrench it is, but the other 2 aren't so bad, so we should be able to get into those with the socket and extension to remove them, and then we're gonna do the same thing for the other side. And just like the other side, we're gonna start at the top with the ratcheting wrench, then move to the impact for the last 2. Now we're gonna remove the 2 bolts on the outside. This is the last thing holding on our bumper, so you wanna make sure you have a good handle on it before you remove these. Now this bumper is loose, so we're just gonna pull it straight back and off the truck.
So our first step is to bolt down the 2 wings on our bumper. I've got it on the table with some microfiber towels so we don't scratch up our bumper. We have our bolts with our lock washers and flat washers to thread into our holes. And I've got a 16mm ratcheting wrench to tighten them down. So now we can take our bolts and thread them into our 2 threaded holes. And then we'll take our 16mm ratcheting wrench to tighten those down. Now once we have those 2 bolts tight, we can come to our pivot bolts. We're going to take a 16mm ratcheting wrench on the bolt side and a 17mm ratcheting wrench on the nut side. And then we'll do that same thing on the other side. Next, we can assemble our fog light. Now we have these nuts that are going to drop into those slots. You can use a flathead screwdriver to line it up. And then we'll put our bracket on top and slide our Allen bolts through. Next, we'll slide our bracket into place. We'll take the included Allen wrench with our bolt and thread that into our nut. And then we can tighten those down. Next, we can install our fog light into our bumper. Now we're going to be going from the front side back. And then we'll take our bolt and put that through our bracket. And then we'll put our flat washer, lock washer, and nut on the other side of that bolt. We'll get that hand tight, center up our light, and then we can take a 13mm wrench and 13mm ratcheting wrench to tighten that down. And now once we have our fog light installed on one side, we can do the same thing on the other side. Next, we can install our upper trim piece. We have our Allen head bolts with our larger flat washer that are going to be going through the top. And then we have a smaller flat washer and a locking nut for the inside of the bumper. And then we can take a 4mm Allen socket and a 10mm wrench to tighten these down. Next, we can install our skid plate. We have 4 U-clips that are going to go on these 4 tabs. And then we have Allen head bolts with a lock washer and flat washer that'll thread through our skid plate and into those clips. And now with all of our U-clips installed, we can take our bolts and thread them into those clips. And now with all of our bolts threaded in by hand, we can take our included Allen wrench to tighten these all down. Next, we can install our license plate bracket. We have an Allen head bolt with a flat washer going through the front side, and then a flat washer and a lock nut going on the back side. And then we'll take a 10mm wrench on the nut side and a 4mm Allen socket on our bolt side. Next, we can install these clips. These are going to be for the screws for your license plate. You'll just line them up and just pop them in. So now we're ready to tackle our wiring. I've got our harness laid out, kind of how it'll go. I've got our switch back here that's going to go through the firewall into the cabin. We have our 2 terminal connectors right here on the battery, and then our 2 connectors for our fog lights are just draping over the front right now. They're going to go down to the floor. So first we can connect our 2 terminals for our battery. So we'll take a 10mm socket to loosen up our nut. And then we'll slide our power wire onto our power, thread our nut back on, and then tighten that back down with our 10mm socket. And then we'll hop over to our negative and do the same thing. Now we can thread our nut back on. Next, we can run our switch through the firewall and into the cabin. Now, right below this module next to our brake booster, we have a grommet. So we'll reach down in there, push our grommet out of place. And then pop our switch through. So now we've hopped into the cabin. We have our switch that we pushed through the grommet on the floor. Now you can mount this wherever you'd like. I'm gonna put ours right down here so that we don't have a bunch of excess wiring sticking out. We're gonna clean that down with an alcohol wipe first, and then we'll give that a chance to dry. We'll pull our switch through about as much as we need. So now that it's nice and dry, you can peel the backing on a double-sided tape. And then we'll just line that up and stick it down. So now we can grab our excess wiring from our switch, we'll pull it tight through the firewall, bunch it up, and zip tie it out of the way. And then we'll take a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters and chop off the excess. And then we can tuck it in right on the back side of the battery tray. Now, last thing we have to do for our wiring is take our 2 connectors. We can drop it through the hole here right next to our fuse box and down to the floor. So now we're ready to mount our brackets onto our frame horns. Now on the back side of the bracket, there's a D and a P for driver and passenger. So we'll raise this up. We've got our bolts with a lock washer and a flat washer. These are going to go through the front. And then we have our second washer and a nut for the back side. Then we can adjust our bracket and get that hand tight. And then we'll grab an 18mm socket and wrench to tighten these down. And then we'll do that same thing on the other side. So now we're all ready to mount our bumper up to our frame horn brackets. We've got bolts with lock washers and flat washers going through one side, and then flat washer and nut on the other side. Now would be a good time to grab yourself a buddy to help you lift it up and get your bolts started. So now I've got my buddy, we're ready to raise up our bumper and get our bolts installed. So now we can grab a 16mm socket and wrench to tighten down all of our bolts. I've got a swivel adapter on here just to make it a little bit easier. And then we'll repeat that process on the other side. So now all we have left to do is to plug in our 2 connectors, one on each side, and zip tie up all of our wiring. So I'm going to take the connector coming off our fog light and run that over our frame. We'll plug in our connector. And then I'm going to bunch up all the wiring and zip tie it right to this tab on our body mount. And then we'll take a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters and cut the excess of our zip tie off. And we can do the same thing on the other side.
That was the barred front bumper for the 2019 and newer Ram 1500, excluding the EcoDiesel, Rebel, and TRX. For all things Ram, remember to keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.